Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my Bookish world. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video. Um, I don't know if anybody has ever done this before, if this is a brand new idea. I'm sure it's not. It's just something that I decided to come up with a few weeks ago when I was kind of going through my Goodreads TBR and just my TBR in general. And that is books I took off my TBR. So these are books that I had either like on my want to read shelf for Goodreads for like a while, and then I was looking through and I was like, do I actually want to read these, or are these just books that I think I got caught up in the hype for? And like some of these books I have read previous, or I've tried to read previously, and I've DNF'd, and I just don't know if I'm going to go back to them. And yeah, so let's get into it because I have quite a few books to talk about. So the first book that I have on here is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This was actually on my March TBR for this month. And I think I think I got it from the library back in December, and I was planning on reading it, and I just ended up not reading it, obviously. And like I'm not really sure why. This book is really hyped and really well loved on BookTube, and for the most part I tend to like a lot of the well hyped books on BookTube. But I don't know. Nothing has really been pulling my interest when it comes to this book. I know that the main character is tall. I know that it's kind of a forbidden romance, but I don't know. All those things that I absolutely adore about books, just for whatever reason, is not pulling me in right now. And the next book I also actually had on here, next two books I also had on here for my March TBR, but I'm definitely just not going to get to them. One, because this is a busy month and I'm only like averaging a book and a half a week right now, and my March TBR was just insane. But that is The Near Witch by Victoria Schwab. This is her first book, but it recently got a reprint the last few years because of the success of her other books. And I don't know what it is, but I am very hit or miss with Victoria Schwab. I've read some of her adult books, I've read some of her young adult books, and I've read her up to her middle grade series, the Cassidy Blake series. I've read the first two books. And like, there's nothing wrong with her. It's just, obviously, there's nothing wrong with her writing. It's just some books I really vibe with. Like, I really liked Vicious, and I really loved, or I enjoyed The Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. And I really enjoyed, obviously, the first two books in the Cassidy Blake series, but for whatever reason, I'm not really interested in Vengeful, which is the sequel to Vicious, so you would think I would be interested in it. And I'm not really interested in A Darker Shade of Magic. I am interested in starting The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because I've heard so many good things about it, and that's another book that, like, the hype is just really getting to me. But yeah, The Near Witch, I don't think I've heard enough about it to know what it's truly about, and I just don't have the interest in it, so yeah. And the next book is Anger is a Gift, and that is a book that I also started like 2-ish years ago, also on my March TBR for this month. And again, I think this book is super important. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I know Emma from Emma Books really loves it, but for whatever reason, this book just does not pique my interest. Which is funny because when it first came out, I was really into the idea of it, but now, I don't know. There's just like, I don't want it. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with the book. I don't think there's anything wrong with the author. Like I said, I did start it and I was really into it. It's just, I think that it's a slow book, and for the most part, I'm reading a lot more fast-paced books, and I tend to enjoy more fast-paced books, and I think that's part of it. But I'm hoping, like, as I get a little bit older and, like, I'm not constantly reading stuff that is very slow for school, that maybe I will be able to get into some of these slow books. So this is probably something that I might end up picking up again. Maybe. Who knows? And then the next book is Something Like Gravity by Amber Smith. I also tried to read this book sometime last year, but it just didn't happen because I had a crazy TBR that month, and that just wasn't my priority. And I really hate that too because I love Amber Smith. I read her first book, or the first book that I read by her was The Way I Used to Be, and I absolutely adore that book. But for whatever reason, this book just was not piquing my interest, which is weird because I know, I have to sneeze. I always have to sneeze like 3 to 4 times in a row. It can't just be once. But anyway, and I know this book has some pretty cool representation in it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I've heard people talk about it. I think Emma from Emma Books also likes this book. So I don't know why it just hasn't been piquing my interest. Along with that, I had The Henna Wars, which I cannot remember the author's name, so I'm sorry about that. But this is a book that I also was planning on reading last year, but again, my TBR was just like too crazy. And I again do not know what it is about this book that doesn't interest me. I mean, I believe its own voices. We have, I believe, 2 main characters who are obviously both into henna, and I believe it's a female-female romance, and it's set in Ireland. And I don't know what about that book just isn't calling out to me because I heard many people enjoy it. I know Kevin from the Irish Reader absolutely adores it. Like, there's literally nothing. This is the recipe. These books are like recipes for me to love, but for whatever reason, my mind is just going, nope, I don't want you. And it really sucks because, I don't know. I feel like I would read it. I'm also probably going to have to do a part 2 on this because I have a lot of books on here, but it's fine. I'll list probably 1, 2, 3, 4 more maybe, and then I'll probably stop. And then I have The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pant. This I also wanted to read a few years ago when it first came out and people were really talking about it. But again, it was just one of those books that I was like, maybe not. And I didn't read it because it was really big, and I think I was trying to participate in Sabathon at the time or something, and so I just was like, I can't get to it. But I know it deals a lot with grief, which is weird because that's not a subject that I tend to shy away from in my own writing and in my reading. But for whatever reason, this book, the idea of reading it and it just being so sad just seems to scare me off. And also it's a pretty big book, so maybe that's why. And like I said, I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. So again, I don't know why. It's just, my mind is just like, nope, not for me. The next book is Coral. And also, I can't remember this author's name. I think it just randomly, somebody talked about it in a video. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I added it to my Goodreads TBR. And I don't actually know what it's about. So this one kind of makes more sense because I don't think I ever knew what it was really about. So I don't feel too bad about that one. The next one might hurt some people, but that's The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I had this on my TBR for a really long time, and this was after I think I read Circe by her, and I gave that book 3 stars. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't my thing. So, but I heard a lot of great things about The Song of Achilles, including that it's queer, and it has a really great romance, and that it's sad. But for whatever reason, this book just does not pull me in. And I think part of it, as I've realized, I don't really like books that are in a historical setting that have to deal with war. Now, that's the oddest, like, specific dislike of books, but for a really long time, I thought I didn't like historical fiction. But the reality is, I just don't like talking about wars, and even though the Trojan War is not, probably not real, and Achilles is not, I mean, the Trojan War is not real. It's based in mythology. For whatever reason, it's just like, nope, that's historical, don't want to read it, so. I know people love this book, but yeah, you can yell at my brain for that one. And then I have Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. Again, I don't know why I'm not into this book. I've heard pretty good things about it. I have heard some average reviews, but like it's a standalone fantasy with a female romance. And that, again, is a recipe for me to love the book. But for whatever reason, I think I just lost interest in it. I think at first when it came out, I was hearing so many good things about it. And then as more people read it, like the reviews were less than stellar, which again happens with any book. But yeah, for whatever reason, this one has just lost my interest. And then I think I'm gonna do one more. I didn't put numbers, so I don't actually know how many there are, but I'm gonna talk about one more. And that is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. And it's really funny because I realized I read a few Amy Reed books when I was in high school, maybe. And I really enjoyed the books that I did, at least that I can remember. I probably would not enjoy them as much now just because I'm a little bit older. But The Nowhere Girls, I also, like, a lot of people when it first came out were really into it and were telling me really good things about it. But for whatever reason, this book just gives me no interest. And I honestly, at this point, don't know what it's about because it came out a while ago and it just not fresh in my mind. And for me, the books that I want to read, I'm reading a lot more newer releases, which is great. But not only that, like I said, I'm reading a lot more newer releases. And because of that, some of the backlog, what's that called? Some of the books that came out like a few years ago, for whatever reason, just like aren't really piquing my interest as much. And maybe it's because I'm older, maybe I'm wanting to read things that are a little bit more sophisticated, even though I'm still reading like Cassandra Clare, who is not the most sophisticated author, but I read her mostly because out of nostalgia. Same thing for why I read Rick Riordan. I do still enjoy their stories, but like it's a nostalgia thing for me. And so I think that I'm wanting to read more books that are by different authors that I maybe haven't read before, or by books that are coming out. I don't know. My mind is a weird place. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up because I might do a part 2 in the next couple months. Who knows? But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Follow all my social media down below. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. And I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.